Guys, welcome to the OCD Recovery channel. We are here with another installment of OCD Real Talk, and we have Gemma once again with us, who was here with us last time as well. Say hi, Gemma, to
Hi,
everybody.
everyone.
We thought we would like talk to Gemma and get to know her a bit more, while also obviously relating some of our own experiences of the journey. Specifically, we want to talk about demotivation, which I think like is a very prominent feature of most people's recovery journey and OCD suffering. So, Gemma, I'll just start off with this. Like, what has your experience been with experiencing demotivation, if you did at all, and how did you like work around that hindrance?
So I don't really think of motivation as a thing. I don't think that motivation is what makes people do things. Maybe some people are motivated. For me personally, I've never had that kind of get up, go, I want to do this. It's always been a case of I need to do this. So what
Mm,
I try and do to keep myself motivated as such is I try not to think about the task I'm doing, but the end goal to the task. So I think to to get motivation to do a task can be quite difficult. Whereas if you're just looking at what you're trying to achieve from that task, that's
mm,
what kind of motivates me to do it.
mm,
So I wrote down a couple of like my goals in life and then what I do to achieve those. So things like I want to recover. So
mm,
then I will see the stuff that leads to that as just a necessary evil, even if it's not something I want to do, even if it's something I can't get motivated to do. If I
mm.
want to achieve recovery, it's the things I need to do. So putting in the work, getting the life structure, and then I just stick to it regardless of motivation levels. It's just something I need to do in order to achieve the end goal.
That's amazing.
That's, I think, yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. And I think I relate a lot to that because, when you're talking to people in the WhatsApp groups or just in the community, and people are legitimately questioning whether they should go for a job or whether they should go for a full-time job or whether they should start their like studies again or not. And they asked me like, oh, but how did you like manage your academics and OCD? And I thought like exactly what you said. I don't know. I mean, I was heavily suffering from OCD when I was in college, but it was just never a conversation in my head that, oh, should I pursue it or not? It was just like, oh, it needs to be done, and that's it. I mean, and
Definitely.
even though going to college, because my college was my trigger essentially, so I was literally walking into my trigger every single day. um but for some reason I just never gave myself that option to even consider taking time off. It was just like, this is what needs to be done. I need to still keep living life no matter how terrible I feel sitting in class and walking around campus. It's just something that needs to be done.
Absolutely.
And that's about it. Nick, what about you?
Well, I think it's important to realize that a lot of people forget about when you read the Ellis books that Ellis has rational musts. They're not spoken about a lot. And
Mm,
a rational must looks like this. I want to pass college. I must pass the tests. You must pass the tests if you want to graduate college. So the way I look at my life in the things I do, I just made a sleep post, is I have goals just like you, Gemma. I have OCD recovery goals, I have personal goals, and then I have my business goals. And we review them once a week, and I do a huge once a year review. And some of these goals that I like, if I want to hike all 58 14,000 foot mountains, I must hike every mountain. I must do that to reach my goal. And it doesn't matter how I feel. And I think that's the main thing that helped me the most in my life was realizing that moment, what are you doing?
I'm just putting like some scenery in my,
This is
because my
exploding,
background is not showing
creeping
up.
across the screen.
Exactly.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
It
But
looks good.
I does. I realize that
Thanks.
in order to achieve, I look at the people who have done things in my life, like a business or spiritual or mountaineering, and I look at them and they all have one thing in common for all these different sectors. They do not get swayed by their emotions. They do what's necessary to achieve their goals, even if they don't achieve them. There's many goals I have that I more than likely will not achieve. That's human nature, but I try my best to not let my emotions ever sway me from that. And I think that's the biggest thing.
And I think like that's a good point. And I also want to highlight that that doesn't mean that you have to be emotionless
Yes.
to recover or to not suffer. It just means that, like for example, when I was in college, I was emotionally suffering generally a lot with OCD, and like there was tons of stuff going on in my life. But I just and I felt my feelings. I mean I did that. I did that part, but I still did not in action through actions. I did not let that stop me from doing what I wanted to do. So I mean, so that's what not being swayed by emotions means, that you still stay focused on the goal that you need to do, no matter how uncomfortable you might be feeling. I gave exams, by the way. I would be sitting and I would be writing on my exam paper, and I would be sitting in a chair that was in my head contaminated. I was sitting on a table that was contaminated. So it was anxiety at 200% while I'm trying to figure out, wait, what did Jean Jacques Rousseau say in his speech? Like, wait, so how did the global recession of like the 2007 happen in Greece? But I still did it. So you can do things like regardless. So Gemma, specifically because exposures, I think, is like an area where people don't feel very enthusiastic to do them. So for you doing exposures, like, have you approached triggers and exposures in the same way, or what kind of mindset do you use?
Yes. So obviously with triggers and exposures, you're never going to want to do them. Motivation is not going to help you there. The only thing that is going to help you there is thinking, do I want to live like this? No. I need to do what's necessary. Even if you're not feeling like it, even if your anxiety is hammering away, which it will because
Mm,
you're so scared. But it's just a case of what you want. If you want it hard enough, you'll do it.
I
mm,
mean, I think that's such a terrific point. Um, and this has played over. I think Moment and I, we've talked about this quite a bit before, Gemma, even before we kind of even met you when I was early in my journey. I would think about how much this recovery was going to roll over into other areas of my life, like how it was going to help me handle other situations. That was another, I think, driving factor of my recovery process. I would think something along the lines of, well, man, if I can handle being this hyper aware of a sensation and this anxious, there's not too many things I'm not going to be able to just handle no matter how they go. I mean, I'm handling a pretty tough situation now. And I think that's what's kind of catapulted me into this, as Rob and I talk about privately, this almost new level of productivity that one can reach because
Mm.
if they've taken their like, let me give you a great example. For me, it's 11 a.m. Okay, it's almost 11. I got up at 4:45 this morning. I've worked out for 2 hours. I watched a 45-minute finance podcast. I've read for 45 minutes. I've done two one-to-ones, and now I'm on this call, and I've done some other stuff as well. And before I would be like, oh, I'm not going to get all this done. I just do things now because I don't
Yeah.
allow myself to
mm.
think, am I too tired? Do I really need to do this? Which can lead to unbalanced behaviors, as Mom and I have talked about. It is important to take time
Yeah,
to.
you can be. There is such a thing as doing too much. And actually, like Nick,
Yes.
that's what I want to ask you as well, because like knowing, as far as I've known you, even when you were like struggling a little bit, like, because you are someone who is like go go go. I've never like seen you as someone who was demotivated. I've seen you as someone at times I've seen you be reluctant to work on recovery and like some aspects of recovery, but not demotivated. And I think there is a certain difference to that. Like I was demotivated because I would just be in bed and be like, I mean, who needs to do this? Why do I even need to like work on
Mm.
recovery? Like it's fine. I'll be okay. That's demotivation, right?
I had a
But
heavy dose of that.
Yeah, I never had
yeah,
that.
but
I never had that, which
mm,
is interesting. I mean, let's be very real. I mean, yes, we acknowledge the past. I mean, our conditioning and our behaviors are very much formed by our friendship groups, our families, where we grow up.
yeah.
I don't know if it was because I played sports my entire life. Like I just kind of grew up with the mindset of, oh, you're feeling pain? Shut up and get back in the game. Like go back into the game. Like
Mm,
that mindset and being around my friend circles, it was compulsive in its own way.
mm.
One upping one another. Like, oh, I got this job. Oh, really? I went on this vacation. And it's like this
Yeah,
constant,
that's such a bad environment to be in.
it
Yeah.
is, and it is. And what I had to realize was Erica gave me these exposures. This is something, and I want to ask you about this, Gemma, coming from someone who obviously, single now with, you're not married is the main thing. Erica used to do this to me. She would say, like on a Sunday, Sundays are my relaxation days, but I'm still hiking like crazy mountains. Sometimes she would say to me, let's go out to breakfast, and I want to do nothing all day. That was difficult for me because I always felt like I needed to do something. Gemma, how did that play into your life? Because you have a 12-year-old daughter, right? So
11, yeah, yeah.
11-year-old daughter, how does that play in? Is your primary career, is it Monday through Friday type deal?
Yeah, so like Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So with my daughter, she has been the biggest motivator for me. So even though at times I think, oh, it's much harder having a child when you have OCD because you're suffering and you have to look after them and things, actually, it's a bonus because I try so much harder for her than I would for
Mm,
myself. I think if it were just me, there's plenty of times that I could have gone, I'm just not doing it. I'll just live like this. It is what it is. But I look at her and I go, she needs a mum. She needs a mum that can do things for her and, is in a good place. So she's been the biggest motivator for me. And I think mums stand a better chance at recovering in some senses because they do have children and they do have,
mm,
I think it was in Paul David's book At Last to Life, where he talks about having a purpose and that being a big motivator. And obviously children, there's no better purpose
Well,
really.
that's the thing too, like with Erica, right? I mean, we have a intimate relationship, and then we own a business together. I have a lot of responsibilities. I can't
Yeah.
just shut down. I mean, I can, but it's not going to end there,
mm.
you know.
Mm.
So
And no, that's a really good point. I think like for me as well, even though I'm someone who doesn't like, I'm not I don't have a family of my own that way. But I think like for me, one of the motivators and one of the purposes I wanted to recover was also because there's a certain kind of life I want. I also eventually want like a partner and a family and all of those things. So and that's something that I know I would cherish quite a lot. So I think, and I mean, it's a certain life that I envisioned, and in some ways still envision for myself. So I think because of that, I really wanted to be like, I want a better life for myself. I just don't want this, and which is what made me overcome not only my demotivation but then also my reluctance to do exposures. I was like, I really don't care at this point. I've been doing the same thing over and over again for so many years. Clearly, it's not worked. Let's just, you know, completely do a 180 and see what happens.
that's I think that's such a good point. And I said this to Rob last night. I don't know if either of you two watch the YouTube channel Philosophy of Life. I recommend both of you to watch it. The new video that came out yesterday was Nietzsche's Philosophy on Love. And the
Mm-hmm.
first point was so incredibly empowering. He said, just how we say, he goes, if you base your marriage off love, you're in trouble because love is a feeling that's fleeting. So what Nietzsche said was, he goes, no matter if I fell out of love or not, my goal wasn't to be in love. My goal was to treat the person in a way that I would treat them to benefit our relationship, whether there was a feeling there or not.
Mm,
Mutual respect. So, I mean, there are definitely times, like I said, with an intimate relationship and a business relationship, where Eric and I have things that need to get done that we don't always agree on from a business standpoint. I'm very technician based. Erica's very entrepreneurial, managerial in certain ways. And we don't feel in love in the moment. In that moment, we're not looking at each other. I love you so much. You know, she'll, it's just, this is, hey, I think this is it. And she'll say, look, I've noticed you've been very kind of black and white on this specific aspect. Would you be willing to change your opinion? And I have to say, yeah, I would. And that's an uncomfortable
mm,
process of life. So Jenna, let me ask you a question going back into the motivation aspects. How important is it, in your opinion, when you have a 9 to 5 type job and you're a mother, single mother in that regard, how difficult or how important, I think is the right way, when the weekends come around and it's that like off time that you've labeled as an off time? How important is it to continue up with the work on those periods where you've like labeled that, oh, this is my, I don't know if you did this. I see this a lot with people. They go, it's the weekend, like it's not working time. I want to kind of do me. And is that something you struggled with or no?
Um, I mean, I I don't tend to give myself masses of off time because I spent when I was suffering, all my spare time was off time, and I got stuck in a rut of just doing absolutely nothing whenever I had the opportunity. And now I think I've just I wouldn't say it's more motivation, but I have more zest now as I
mm,
start to get better. I want better. I want more. And before I was very I just want to feel comfortable in the moment. I don't really care about future goals. I don't really care about where my life's going. I just want to stop suffering. As I'm suffering less, I'm thinking more about my downtime is time to improve on this, to do a bit of this. And it is important to
mm.
relax as well, but I'm definitely finding I have more of a zest for life and a more of a want to actually do things now.
Yeah, I think
And
that's a
I think
great
like
point.
and motivation, I feel like is sometimes less. I mean, more often, in fact, especially for OCD sufferers, I think it's less of a feeling; it's more of a habit. Like
Mm,
if you are
yeah,
doing things regularly and keeping a momentum with certain activities, tasks, life structure on a daily basis, that's what creates motivation, not
mm,
waiting for that feeling of motivation to start doing things.
I think
yeah,
like brushing your teeth is a great example. Like, I when I went to the dentist 3 weeks ago, she's like, "Wow, your teeth look really good." And I was like, "Yeah, doesn't." I was like, "I still hate brushing my teeth." I was like, "I just don't enjoy brushing my teeth." My mom was like, "Even when you were younger," she goes, "I would see you be like, and then like put it in the water to pretend it was wet." It's because I didn't want to brush my teeth. And
Mm,
it's just one of those things where, like you said, Gemma, the end goal is no cavities, no gingivitis. My teeth aren't falling out of my head, and I have to pay thousands of dollars for work. So that's the end goal. And I think tying all this in so far is when Moment and I are on a call, and as Gemma, as you know, all the ones you did, all the ones I did, and Moment, when people are coming into me and Moment, one of the things I say to them is, you know, as you're transitioning from this educational stage of what do I have to do, you have to ask yourself, like, is the compulsion and the feeling I'm looking for worth the suffering? To me, it's not. It's
no,
not worth it. It's just not worth it.
absolutely.
It's just not worth
And
it,
and the other thing I'd also I was just speaking to someone recently who was struggling to who had like who was just very demotivated to work on recovery, and I completely saw myself in that person because I was exactly the same. I knew all the knowledge, I knew everything of how OCD works, how exposures work, how anxiety works, how fear works, everything, how acceptance is, like I knew everything. I was just not doing it. I was just like, but yeah, I know, but
I think
okay. I
every
mean, it was
single
that kind of
person
feeling.
has done that. I think every single person that has come into OCD recovery has done the same thing, because I think I've heard pretty much everyone that speaks on the channel and stuff say the same thing, that we all
Yes,
try to get book smart. We all go, okay, if
exactly,
I just
exactly.
learn my way out of this, because it's the easy way. Learning your way out of it is so much
And
easier
also,
because it's
Gemma,
not uncomfortable.
exactly. And sometimes it's also linked to self worth as well, because that person was saying, one of the reasons I'm not working on recovery is because I feel like I'm not worthy or deserving of it. And so
Yeah.
I was like, oh wow, I mean, that is kind similar to me as well, because I thought, oh, recovery is for other people, they can do it. I don't think if I try to work on it, I can keep up with it, or that kind of stuff. So it was just it somehow ties also into with how you perceive yourself, and a lack of self acceptance, basically, because you think you don't have like the best image and notion and idea about yourself and opinion about yourself. You also then tend not to go after big goals and dreams of your life, because you're like, that's for other people, not for me.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing too, which is so important, what you just said, Moment, is um, I'll give you an example of a call this morning. It was the first one, the one I had about 4 hours ago. And she said word for word, word for word. So everyone listening, this is what OCD does. I am completely okay with suffering for the rest of my life. That's the word she used, to stop my magical thinking from coming true, which is surrounding her mother
Mm,
passing away.
mm.
And I said, let's think about what you just said for a second. You are willing. There was no hesitation. I said, you're willing to suffer forever. She said, absolutely. I do not want to take that risk. So that person, you can't convince them of anything. That has to be a self discovery. Like you
You
have
can
to
only help someone if they want to help themselves.
exactly. And I think it is so important, real quick, to cover the reality of what you will feel like when you're coming out of a compulsion. So we worked with this
Mm,
kid. He was in the webinar yesterday. I won't use his name. He's 7 months sober from injecting heroin. And he messaged me the other night and he said, bro, word for word, he goes, the withdrawals from my compulsions with OCD feel just as tough as my heroin withdrawals, because those compulsions, we don't, this is why the compassion is key. We don't realize the similarities between like an addictive behavior to the compulsion. Like the compulsions are addictive. We chase them for certainty. So when you
mm,
take them away, it's totally understandable for OCD to think, no way, you're no, 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 no. Takes the thermometer and like boils it over the top. It's just like symptoms, changing themes. Am I doing this right? Oh my gosh. And then it's trying as best as you can with all the relapses to keep your eye on the goal. As Momen said, I'll never forget this. The goal of OCD recovery is changing who you are as a person, not necessarily feeling better. That's a byproduct of the journey. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and I think that's key. Gemma, this is another I think great question. When you were decreasing the compulsive behaviors that you were struggling with, the rituals, how did that feel over the first 2 months when you really started to take that seriously?
Like I was absolutely boiling over, like it was going to burst out of me. It was, yeah, it was. I remember saying to someone, I think it was in one of the WhatsApp groups, it feels like an exorcism. Like there is something, there is something
The
in
Exorcism
you,
of
and it
Gemma,
needs to get out.
directed by
Um,
Steven Spielberg, coming soon.
but I mean, I put this in a post the other day that the thing that helped me more than anything, because my biggest compulsions were confession, reassurance seeking, um, and the biggest thing that helped me was delaying. So I would delay
Mm,
by, I'd go, if I still feel like this in an hour, I'm going to have to talk about it. And then an hour would go by and I'd go, well, I'm not feeling, if I can just do a couple more hours. And then I would just work up and up and up. And then I was getting to the point where I was going, if I'm still thinking about this much, by next week, I'll give my mum a ring and talk to her about it. And then
Mm-hmm.
eventually I just realized that no matter how much I wanted to talk about it, I didn't actually need to. And, it was amazing when I realized that I can, I still get things come in and I go, that's making me really uncomfortable. I'd love to talk about it, but I'm not going to. And I've just realized I don't need to be comfortable anymore. If I'm uncomfortable, it's not an issue. Life's not
Did
about
the
being comfortable.
did the discomfort at any point make you want to backtrack on like cutting out compulsions?
Oh, absolutely, and I probably did a good few times as well. I probably
Okay.
a good few times I went, "Oh, I don't think it's worth this. I think, yeah, I'm just gonna do it."
Mhm.
And then I'd do it and I'd go, "Why? Why? Why would
Yeah,
you do
and then
that?"
what's fun, and then it's interesting too, just to give people some true insight about how quickly it can change the way you feel, because because the addictive behaviors I had, unbeknownst to me, were so tied in to my OCD, my addictive behaviors with adult websites, my addictive behaviors to the gym. When I would go, I went 238 days of not watching a single minute of porn. And I relapsed for 3 days. And in a matter of 3 days, I felt like I'd never met Rob. That's how quickly it
Mhm.
brought me back. So when people ask me, what does it feel like to be like where you are now, Rob? I got this from Rob. I think it's the truth. You have to look at it like a long stage recovery. You're good, like alcoholism. You're good, but you could fall back. You could go backwards
Yeah.
if the wrong situation and you kind of let it go. It's not like I'm walking around all day saying I have to be on guard. I have to be on. Well, it's not even in my forethought. But
Yeah.
there are times where things work related, which that's where my old perfection can come out. I'll sit down with Erica in the business meeting, and this is how I'll start the meeting. I'll be like, all right, this is what we're going to cover. This is what I'm going to go over. Erica's like, okay. And I'm like, wow, it's like you can feel it. You can feel that certainty pull back quick.
Mm.
Yeah.
And Nick, I think I also really want that just like clicked something in me that it's not even just about OCD, because people think that, oh my God, we're stuck with a disorder that can come back at any time. What the hell? Again, going back to that, recovery is about changing yourself as a person, not necessarily getting rid of OCD. And that's been my journey with also just personally working on myself as a person. So let's say, like, hypothetical random example, there's someone who is like a compulsive backbiter, right? Who is always backbiting about people, and at some point they change that behavior about themselves, and because they realize how destructive it is, how they don't have any friends, and I mean, for whatever reason, they for the better they change themselves. But let's say when they are 40 years old or 35 years old, I mean, because they had the initial like instincts maybe in some ways to like do that, or for whatever reason they do that, a person can always fall back into like unhealthy behavior patterns like that again. So someone might, if there's a situation where they're triggered in a certain way, or something is like reminiscent of a past situation, that person might backbite again just for the fun of it, or just to hurt somebody
Yes.
else. And so,
Yeah. Real quick moment.
yeah.
I know we don't talk about the science a whole lot, but I do think this is cool to talk about.
Mm,
Those synapses of our new those synapses don't go away. Those pathways
mm,
are there. They're just not
yeah,
activated. So, like, if you have a simple bridge and you create, this is addiction, and you create a new pathway that's
yeah.
not addiction, this pathway doesn't just go boop and disappear. It's there.
Mm,
And the less you use it, the less prominent the pull feels, the urges. But
100%.
you can, I mean, I've seen it with my friends. I saw it with myself, you know?
Yeah, it's like when I was stuck in the cycle of blaming other people for my suffering. Even aside from OCD, I don't like. I mean, obviously, it was a lot of compulsive behaviors. But then, if I just see it like outside of the OCD lens, I see other people, all of my, like a lot of my other friends who don't suffer from OCD, but they go through the same thing where they're just blaming their problems on other people. It's just a human thing that people do. So, but like, I tried to change that about myself, and I don't feel like now in my life I am where in a place where I'm just blaming other people for my faults or my shortcomings. However, I think there have been like sometimes like there are like some bumps in between where my brain almost wants to like find a target to blame, in the sense that, oh, I'm suffering from this problem, it's because of this person, or this person should have done something differently. But then I just check myself and I'm like, I'm not going to go down that route because I know that's not helpful. So
That's
it's not just
yeah.
about OCD is not like a death sentence for you that, oh my God, it's going to come back at some point. Even if you are someone not with OCD, just a regular human being without a disorder, this still applies to you. All right. So I think we've discussed quite a lot of things related to demotivation, that tie also into life structure as well and habit formation as well. Um, Gemma, I think I'll just end with this asking you that if there was someone who came to you saying that, hey girl, I'm not really motivated to work on recovery, I don't see the point in it, I don't see the benefit in it, I'm not driven enough to work on recovery, what do you think your response would be? No pressure, it can be just be like, I mean, whatever you want to do.
I think I would ask them how they feel about their life at the moment. Um,
Mm.
I would say, are you willing to live like this forever? You know, it's even though recovery is hard, it's not your whole life. You know, there does come a point where you become more accepting and you in turn do start to improve. Um, you know, are you willing to put in a few years of discomfort and hard graft for the next 20 to 30 years of your life to be of a much better quality? Because you just need to look at long term. Don't look at the task, look at the end goal.
Perfect. I think that's a great way
I
to
think
end
that's a
it.
good way to put it.
And I'm going to
Yeah.
just reiterate that in my own ending. I mean, nothing in life says we have to. We've just convinced ourselves as a population that we have to feel certain ways to do certain things. I should marry that person because I don't feel in love. I shouldn't start uni or college because I don't feel motivated. It's like those are just the excuses that we tell ourselves, OCD or not. And way after OCD recovery, further in, you will have moments like that in your life where you're still going to say, I don't really want to do that because, like I got other things to do. So it's not like you just get to OCD recovery and all of that goes away forever. I mean, you have life structure in your life and stress. But I want to thank both of you for coming on the call. It was a great call. Gemma, thank you so much. The next call we're going to do, Erica's going to be on, strictly about friends and
Perfect.
family. The three of us, if you want to be there as well, Gemma, I think it will be good to have maybe you,
Yeah, I want to
Erica.
Yeah,
I want
I
to be on
think
a
it
call
would
with
be
my
fun to
favorite
do.
Panella.
Yeah, my favorite Panella. And we'll just ask Erica different questions from like a perspective of each of us. It doesn't just have to be me. You guys can ask
Yeah,
her
yeah.
how she handled it, and then we'll do that.
No, you talk to her all the time. Let me and Gemma ask her questions.
We want our time.
She's sick of me.
Exactly.
So, guys, it was a
Okay.
pleasure. Thank you for everything.
Thank
Same here.
you.
Take care, guys. Have a good
Later,
day.
guys. See
Bye
ya.
bye.
Bye.